welcome back. We're here to talk about another project that's currently funding over on Kickstarter. And I came across this one, not in a weird way, but um, each week, I scroll through the multitude of Kickstarter projects and see if any of them stand out to me. And as I was looking on Facebook, I saw Dan's project on Kat Kalamia's page, and so I was like, "Oh, that looks interesting." And so I checked it out. I included it in our roundup. It looked really interesting, so I invited Dan here to talk about it. So
thanks
welcome.
for having me.
So before we get started, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Kind of start with your how you got into comics, and then how you got into making your own.
Yeah, I guess I got into comics maybe later than some. I think I was in like middle school, and it was really Batman that was like the gateway drug for me. And funny enough, now I don't really read a ton of superhero stuff. At some point, I sort of shifted more to horror, but writing comics is something I did just kind of in script form for many, many years. I did in college and then a little bit afterwards. And the difference of going from writing your scripts to actually believing in something enough to hire an artist, you can't, if you can't draw, like I can't, I could barely draw a stick figure, actually hiring an artist to, help build your vision and make an actual comic, it's a big leap. And so I did like a couple of little shorts here and there post college, and then finally during the pandemic, I took this comic book writing course with this writer Jason McNamara out here in Portland, and in this comic writing course, I just met this great group of people who were also interested in writing comics, and I decided to really take the plunge. And so I did my first Kickstarter. It was called A Lungful of Brine, Nautical Horror Stories. And so it was a collection of these short horror stories, each one having to do with the ocean in one way or another. I want to say it was like 2022, 2023. And I got to work with a whole bunch of different artists, and each story is very different. And that was kind of like really where I started to go full throttle at this thing. And since then, I've just been working on various projects here and there, up until today. So I'm working on another short story collection, and this one I'm giving it a very different theme, but similar, where it'll eventually be collected into like one full volume.
So why don't we jump right into that and kind of tell us, the name of the project, and give us kind of a broad overview.
Yeah, it's called Tales of Medieval Horror. And so there are a handful of short stories that are part of this collection, and it's sort of ongoing. I've been posting them on my Substack, but I wanted to run this Kickstarter to fund the latest one, and also just a print run for all of them, because the art is so good. The artist is Christos Pitas. He's out of Greece. Fantastic up-and-coming artist. I worked with my go-to letterer, Reed Hinckley Barnes. He's done a ton of work on Kickstarter and some in the direct market too. And so the latest one from this series, Tales of Medieval Horror, it's this full issue length one. So kind of what you would expect as like, something that you would see in stores, full 22 pages. And I thought that would be the perfect one to bring to Kickstarter. It's self-contained. It's 22 pages with a beginning, middle, and end. You don't need to know anything before the story. There's not going to be anything that happens after the story. So anyone can pick that up and just kind of dive right in and understand what's going on.
So why don't you kind of set up what the story's about, and kind of talk the major characters, and just an overview to kind of give people a taste.
Yeah, so it is centered around the Lord of Dorchester, who is this very anxious, bumbling man who really should not be in power at all, but he was born into it. and he really struggles with choice. And so he has this jester who's part of his council, and everybody knows that the jester is the one who actually makes the decisions, which is actually historically accurate. A lot of jesters aren't just kind of the fools that you see portrayed in media, but they were actually really wise and provided really great counsel to their lords and kings. And so basically what happens is the lord is under siege, his castle is under siege by a rebelling baron, and the wise fool volunteers to go off and kind of be the messenger to try to get the besieging force to surrender. And the baron who is, sieging the lord is this horrible, cruel man, and he ends up doing exactly, kill the messenger type of thing, and boiling the jester alive and sending the jester's bones back to the lord, which absolutely crushes him. He's this man who was holding the lord together. And so what happens next in the book is this like slow spiral into madness as the lord is finally on his own, having to make all of these decisions during this very high pressure situation of a siege. And he begins to see the ghost of his jester dancing around as a skeleton while he's trying to rule, and it's not going very well.
So what was the inspiration behind this story and, setting it in this, I guess medieval time frame?
Yeah. So with these story collections that I've been doing, I kind of find it helpful to have a box for myself, if that makes sense. So, A Lungful of Brine was all nautical horror, so it kind of just gives you a starting place. And it's the same thing with these tales of medieval horror, where, it's just the sort of parameter for myself that actually I find allows me to be more creative. And so then it's not just looking at a blank page. It's like, okay, everything's going to be medieval in some way or another, but then what is the story that I want to write? And so the story I wanted to write through that lens was about my own difficulty making decisions. It's something that I've struggled with a lot. And it's something that kind of, funny enough, after I wrote the story and even, the art was finished, I recently got diagnosed with adult ADHD. So it's executive dysfunction really is what it is.
right there with you.
Yeah. So that was actually kind of a really funny discovery after writing the story. So I guess that's really what it's about, is it's about indecision and being in this situation of needing to make these decisions and just kind of fumbling with it and trying to persevere under these high pressure situations. Luckily, I'm not, a lord who has to make decisions to defend a castle and save a bunch of peasants. Thankfully, I'm not in that position. I'm just making comics. But yeah, that's basically where it all stems from.
Yeah. Interesting. So how did you go about designing or creating the characters for the story?
That was a very collaborative effort with Christos. I kind of knew that I wanted to have this council, and so each member of the council is pulling the Lord in a different direction. And to achieve that, I really looked into the history and I looked at what the kind of advisors lords would have, and so they sort of represent different areas of medieval society. So you have the marshal, who is the warrior type of guy, who is always thinking with his sword, and so his first recommendation is to do a counter charge and try to catch them by surprise. And then you have the religious figure, kind of forgot what the official title is, but of course he's trying to convince him to pray to God and to lean into faith during this crisis. And then there's the diplomat who's trying to he actually isn't really being helpful at all. He's just kind of complaining about how awful the Baron is, and he's sort of useless. But just another noise that's in the ear of this lord who's struggling so much to make these decisions. And then Christos just had this incredible way of bringing life into these characters with design. Yeah, I think he showed me the designs for all of them, and I was like, yep, no notes, no feedback. Like, what you're doing is absolutely awesome. I love the Marshall so much. He has this like breastplate that like comes up to cover his mouth, so like part of his face is obscured, and it's such a cool design. And all of them are really great.
Now, given the fact that it's I believe you said it was 22 pages.
Yeah.
Did you find it difficult to kind of, tell the story you wanted to tell and still kind of balance out the, the use of this, those, I guess, secondary characters? Or
Yeah, that's interesting. I think a lot of the stories that I've written are kind of short and dense. So 22 pages was actually pretty long for me, and I felt like it gave me like a lot of room to play with these characters and flesh them out in a way where it didn't feel too compressed. I was able to tease it out a little bit more. But it's always a challenge trying to accomplish everything you want to accomplish within a set number of pages, and especially when you're trying to give the artist his chance to shine and have big, cool splash panels that are really engaging and stuff like that. But yeah, I think 22 pages is a pretty good amount of space to be able to tell this type of story.
And as you've kind of written more, comics, how do you feel that your craft has, grown and developed?
Yeah, it's funny. It's like every time you write something, you look back at it later on, you're like, oh my God, I wish I did this differently, or I wish I did that differently. I don't know. I'm always growing, and I'm always learning and changing. And I think a lot about honing my craft is really about getting feedback from peers and having a really great community of other writers and artists and creators to help guide you and help tell you this is working, this isn't working, what if you tried this. So I've really tried to lean into that a lot more than anything else. I'll write one story, and then the next one I send it to as many people as I can, and from there I get to extract insights about how to improve my craft in the future.
So what are you offering in the campaign, for people who want to help support?
I'm glad you asked. So we've got 3 issues, I guess you would call them. The first issue has 2 stories in it, 2 10-page stories. One is called Danse Macabre, and one is Armor of the Wicked. And then the second issue has 1 story in it. It's I believe it's 18 pages, and it's called the Bestiary. That one's a lot of fun and really creepy. And then the Fool of Dorchester, that's kind of the main story. That's the 22-page one that I was talking about. That's sort of what the campaign is mostly about, is that one. And that one, is available both with Christos Pedis's his original cover art, so the interior artist's cover. It's that really bold red background cover with the gesture on the front that matches the rest of them as like the full collection. And then I got a variant cover by Gerald von Stoddard, and it's such a cool one. It's this like tarot card inspired one, and whereas Christos's cover, it's pretty mute in a lot of ways. It's just this bold red background and then sort of black and white art. Gerald's is like the opposite, where it's just this like color explosion, and so it's kind of fun to have both of those. So that's kind of the main offering here. I tried to keep it pretty lean and focus mostly on the books. Some stretch rewards will be coming soon, where some more goodies can be tacked on if we raise enough money and get enough backers. So I'm excited to start introducing those. But yeah, it's been running just short of a week. Tomorrow will be a week.
So you've run Kickstarters before. What did you learn from past ones that you've applied to this one? And the second part of that question is, because I like to ask two-part questions and confuse people. Uh, what are your overall impressions? Being 1 week into the campaign so far this time.
Okay, first question. What have I learned about Kickstarters? You would think that I would learn more. I feel like it's this moving target, and it's just so different for each project. One thing I've definitely learned is the power of the pre-launch page, and how I probably should have spent more time trying to get pre-launch followers. I think the landscape of Kickstarter has like really changed a lot over the last few years. Definitely since my A Lungful of Brine days, which was maybe, I don't know, 4 years ago or something. So yeah, it's almost like Kickstarter. It's like the difficulty level has been raised. It's I feel like the platform is just a little trickier for creators, especially creators who aren't established. And I learned the same lesson that I've learned, in the past, which is that your social media following, your newsletter, stuff like that is so important, and something that I really neglect. I have a very hard time keeping on top of that stuff. The whole marketing aspect of creating is just something that I really struggle with. But it's one of those like necessary evils that I know I need to work on. What was the other part of the question? I already forgot.
How is this current campaign, even though you're only a week in, compared to the others?
It's different. It's definitely different. With my first one, it was just this like crazy explosion in the beginning, and carried pretty well all the way through, and did really well. And then the last two didn't perform quite as well. And this one, I think, started off pretty strong, and I'm pretty happy about how it started, and even more so, I'm happy about how after that initial 24-hour, 48-hour period, it seems like I keep getting more people on board, which I think is really, really cool. And it's awesome to just be really scrappy, and I'm trying to promote it as much as I can. And people are jumping on board, and they're not just jumping on board to like order the digital copy, the least expensive tier. They're like getting the whole series, and it's been really great to see.
So, looking at at the larger picture, who are your inspirations for writing, and where do you tend to pull your inspirations from?
Yeah, for these short story collections, both Tales of Medieval Horror and A Lungful of Brine, I've been looking, mostly to great horror anthologies. And so for me, for a long time, and probably still, my favorite is, Junji Ito, the manga creator who has put out so many incredible stories. I really studied his work years ago, and I still do. I love how he uses the page turn. I think the way that he builds dread is just absolutely incredible. And so many of those stories are my favorite horror stories that you can find in comics. But also I love Western horror anthologies. I think The Silver Coin might be one of my favorites, if not my favorite Western horror anthology. Michael Walsh heading up that one, 3 volumes. And that one is actually kind of interesting to think about, because each one is like a 22-page full issue, and they're, like loosely related, which I love in an anthology, where there's some sort of connective tissue, but it means that like the stories aren't too much the same. It's like you have this idea that could be taken in so many different directions. And so for The Silver Coin, it's just this like creepy evil coin that like causes chaos in all of these different people's lives. And so many of the creators just took it in these like really inventive, cool ways over the 22 pages that they had to tell their stories. So I absolutely love that one. And then like Epitaphs of the Abyss, and the whole EC Comics line of their horror anthologies is always a great place to look for inspiration of short form storytelling.
Now, when you're writing, horror comics, do you find that, are there any challenges like, timing, like page turns, and to get the effect that you're probably looking for?
Yeah, always. I mean, I think the page turn is so important for horror. And so, whenever you make an adjustment to a page, you have to go back and see how it affects every other page, which is something that happens all the time. And it's a challenge, but it's a fun challenge in pacing and plotting things out. And it's just a puzzle that you have to work and rework until you figure out something that you feel like is working for you and telling your story the best way that you can tell it.
Well, is there anything else that you want to make sure that people know about that maybe we didn't cover?
Not really. I'm so happy that you had me on, and I hope everyone checks out Tales of Medieval Horror. I'd love to have you join this campaign. I think we're offering something really special, and I hope you take a look.
Well, if you want to give one last pitch for the book and where people can find more from you, if you are brave enough to go onto the horror scene that is social media.
Well, you don't even have to go into social media unless you consider Substack social media. I've got a newsletter there where I've been publishing a lot of these comics first, and global comics as well, where you can check them out before you decide whether you want them in print or you just want the Jester story, which is going to be a Kickstarter exclusive. And yeah, so that's Tales of Medieval Horror on Kickstarter. It's a bunch of standalone tales grounded in 14th century England that deal with a variety of creepy topics having to do with chilling relics and creepy folk that come around. It's a big intersection of religion, especially, and horror.
Well, I want to thank you for taking the time this evening to chat, and we will continue to follow the campaign over on Comic Watch, our weekly roundup. So yeah, it was a pleasure talking to you. And anytime did you have another project that you want to get the word out about, then you're more than glad to have you back and chat about that and see how this one turned out.
Great. Thanks for having me on, Chad.
All right. Well, have a great evening.
All right. Take care.